All right, now with leadership styles, this is kind of interesting to me, and the only reason I'm covering it in this format is that this is on the exam. Okay, so we talk about leadership styles, and like I said, communication is 90% of the project manager's job. So being able to communicate to their team, and that's certainly involved when we talk about leading a team. And there are different types of leadership styles, and quite often you'll find that a leader will employ different styles based on different situations. And that's really important as well, is being able to read a situation and to determine how should I lead in the situation. So this is testable. All right, a servant leader, that's usually someone that puts others, or that is someone that puts others ahead of themselves. I want to develop you. I want to make sure that you're where you need to be. I've gone into meetings where a manager says, what can I do? Or they start off the meeting by saying, what can I do to make your job better? That's a servant leader, and that's a great environment to work in because the manager, assuming it's sincere, understands the fact that if you give me what I need, I can perform my job. But sometimes you've got executives or sponsors or customers that are counting every little penny, and the battle you have to fight in order to just get a few resources, it's devastating to the success of the project. So a servant leader says, what do you need? Okay. Transformational. These are sort of the visionary managers that are very motivating in that they can look at the ideals. They're very creative. If you look at a lot of startup companies, you go into the startup companies and they have the big open space and a ping pong table there, and it's very, it feels very young and hip. That's kind of a transformational environment, is let's be creative, let's think outside the box, which is like my least favorite phrase. But, we're going to transform where we are now into where we want to be. Transactional managers are task-oriented. Here's what we're going to do. Check, 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 check. And sometimes that's necessary, right? We've got tasks to perform. We've got work to be done. A laissez-faire manager is one of those managers that's very laid back, very much believes in empowering their team to make their own decisions, and generally tends to have a hands-off style, right? Just let the team members do their jobs. Charismatic leaders are really good at getting people pumped up and excited. A lot of times that's based on their personality, that they can really go in and charm a room, and they can really inspire folks. And then you've got an interactional manager that has this combination of transactional, transformational, really has the combination of those three leadership types. Now, what you'll find is the majority of the PMP exam isn't like this, but from time to time we'll come to these little slides where we just have to go, okay, you need these 6 ideas in order to pass. So I generally talk about communication and management and leadership differently throughout the course, but this you need to just be able to tick off, because they'll say, Bob is a manager that inspires creativity throughout the organization. Well, what type of manager is that? Probably he's going to be a transformational manager. So I think you'll see several questions on that. You want to know that page. All right, now, leadership versus management. And again, it's not necessarily that one is right versus wrong. We tend to favor leadership rather than management, but there are ideas of management that are just necessary. As a whole, I'd rather be thought of as a leader, okay? Because we're looking at guiding, helping my employee, collaborating, where we're all kind of equal. Somebody that the team feels like they can trust. Challenging the status quo. I can't tell you how many business decisions I've heard made based on, we've been doing it this way for 20 years, we'll never get it to change. Nobody will ever buy into the change. So somebody that challenges the status quo, just because it's something we've done for 20 years, doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. As a matter of fact, because it's been what we've been doing for 20 years, that would make me question if it is the right thing to do, right? Anything that we're holding on to that long. So a leader says, let's ask deeper questions. Let's find out why. Whereas a manager, their leadership is more about, I'm a manager because this is my position. There's control. Often they may use negative reinforcement, like, if this happens, you'll be written up. So yeah, you'd much rather focus on being a leader than a manager. Although the environment in which you work, what the internal, what the external environment and culture is like, is really going to drive which of these areas you can work in. So if you see this idea, the project manager must understand the organizational policies and so on. When we talk about this idea of company cultures, we refer to it as an enterprise environmental factor. An enterprise environmental factor. As a matter of fact, we often refer to them as EEFs. Just as a shortcut, enterprise environmental factors are company culture and the way we do things. And Sully, I agree with you 100%. There are a whole lot of managers out there. And, in some companies, we really see that framework is just reinforced from the inside. I think about the military sometimes, is that, the promotions happen based on a checklist of criteria in some cases. And you can find people managing users that may be very good at what they do, again, that halo theory, but shouldn't necessarily be the managers of a unit or so on. And that happens throughout the public and private sector, absolutely. In the government, too. And you may say, what government? Because we have no government now, but someday we will have a government that's actually running again. So, project manager must understand internal, external politics. How our organization operates affects projects. And Shell, I couldn't say it any better myself. It affects how our projects work. So if you're with a very structured organization, and maybe you're ISO 27001 compliant, or ISO 9000, or you're lean, or Six Sigma, or whatever those are, you have a certain set of processes that have to happen, and you're very formalized, right? So that's going to dictate how you operate within a project. If you work for a young startup company, it's going to be a totally different experience. So try to stay away from those ideas that this is the way it happens, right? Because the culture influences so much.